Hello and welcome back to Concealed. Sean Combs, better known as P. Diddy, or rather inmate 37452-054, is currently experiencing a stark contrast to his once glamorous life. Locked up inside New York's Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, he now resides in what has been described as one of the worst jails in the country, a place notorious for violence, drug use, and inhumane conditions. Life inside MDC is a far cry from the most extravagant parties and luxurious living he once enjoyed. Instead of his lavish homes and designer suites, Diddy now finds himself in a facility plagued with overcrowding, inadequate medical care, and an atmosphere that many inmates have compared to the seventh circle of hell. Their dramatic fall from grace comes after his arrest in September 2024 on a series of grave charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and the creation of a criminal enterprise that allegedly facilitated various sexual offenses against women. Diddy, who once built a billion-dollar empire through music, fashion, restaurants, vodka brands, and television, was once a symbol of wealth and success. In his prime, he threw exclusive, highly publicized white parties that attracted the world's biggest celebs. These gatherings weren't just about luxury and excess, they were infamous for their adult-only activities, where guests indulged in all sorts of wild and often debaucherous behavior. Reports suggest that these parties included marathon sessions of drug use and sex, and high-profile attendees engaging in illicit activities while models and escorts catered to their every whim. Some of these women, allegedly, were subjected to such extreme treatment that they needed intravenous drips to recover from a day of relentless activity. Now, however, Diddy's reality couldn't be further from the world of private jets and five-star hotels. Instead, he's locked in a tiny, stark prison cell with an MDC, where the only white lines he sees are those he must stand behind during mandatory strip searches. His every move is monitored, recorded, and scrutinized. Given his high-profile status, officials have taken precautions to ensure he remains safe. Though in prison, true safety is never guaranteed. Rather than being placed in the general populace, where he'd likely be an instant target, he has been confined to the Special Housing Unit, a 23-hour-a-day lockdown designed for protective custody. According to a former warden, the decision to place Diddy in the SHU wasn't just about keeping him away from other prisoners. It was about keeping him alive. With his charges involving sex crimes and given his enormous wealth, he is considered a prime target. In the violent, lawless world of prison, harming a high-profile inmate like Diddy could earn another prisoner a twisted badge of honor. If he were placed in general population, he'd likely have to pay astronomical amounts of money for protection, but even that wouldn't guarantee his survival. Inside his isolated cell, Diddy's days are monotonous and grueling. His morning begins at precisely 6 a.m., though sleep is probably a luxury he rarely enjoys. The SHU is eerily quiet at night, but occasional screams pierce through the silence, serving as a grim reminder of where he is. His mattress is barely an inch and a half thick, with no pillow for comfort. For a man accustomed to sprawling mansions with home theaters, spas, and underground swimming tunnels, this level of discomfort is unimaginable. The cell itself is as basic as it gets. 4 concrete walls, an iron frame bed bolted to the floor, a combined sink toilet unit, and a single strip light that stays on almost constantly. Diddy spends nearly his entire day within these confines, alone except for occasional visits from his lawyer or family. The rest of the time, his only companions are the cockroaches and rodents that infest the prison. Isolation like this can break even the strongest minds, and inmates in similar conditions have been known to develop severe psychological issues. Many in solitary confinement resort to naming insects or engaging in repetitive activities just to maintain some semblance of sanity. Cleaning duties such as making his bed, mopping the floor, and keeping the sink and toilet clean might be humiliating for a man who once had a full staff catering to his every need, but they also provide him with one of the few distractions available. Meals are another harsh adjustment. Each day, food is slid through a small opening in his door, a far cry from the gourmet feasts he once enjoyed. Breakfast consists of powdered scrambled eggs, processed white bread, milk, and cheap fruit drink. Nothing remotely resembling the high-end dining experiences he used to indulge in. Lunch and dinner aren't much better, typically consisting of cold hot dogs, low-grade meat filled with sinew, and uninspiring side dishes. With MDC's history of food safety violations, there's always the risk of maggots or other contaminants making an appearance. This is a shocking contrast for a man who used to spend thousands of dollars on a single meal. Despite the grim circumstances, Diddy does have access to prison commissaries, where he can purchase small luxury items like candy, coffee, tea, or instant noodles. However, even with all the money in the world, his spending is limited to $160 every 2 weeks. Pocket change compared to his past lifestyle. Books can be another source of escape, but access to the library is minimal for those in the SHU. If he's reading anything, it's likely from the prison's electronic law library, which according to inmates is severely lacking in resources. One former prisoner described MDC as a place where even basic human rights are ignored. Showers, another basic necessity, are limited to 3 times a week, taken alone in facilities that are reportedly mold infested. For someone accustomed to luxury spas and personal grooming specialists, the stench of mold combined with malfunctioning plumbing and clogged toilets must be unbearable. A recent report indicated that in just 1 month, MDC had over 800 repair work orders, and many of them related to plumbing issues. But as miserable as life is in the SHU, being placed in general population would be worse. MDC has a long-standing reputation for violence, with prisoners being stabbed on a near weekly basis. Inmates have access to homemade weapons, some up to 9 inches long, and attacks are often carried out with little intervention from the guards. One former prisoner revealed that after being stabbed multiple times, he was placed in solitary confinement rather than given proper medical care. Another inmate wasn't so lucky. He was killed in an attack. Adding to the danger, some of the facility's own correction officers have reportedly engaged in corrupt dealings, smuggling in contraband such as drugs, phones, and weapons. According to insiders, some guards are even affiliated with gangs, making MDC one of the most treacherous federal jails in the country. Given this reality, it's no surprise that judges have hesitated to send high-profile inmates there. However, with the closure of the Metropolitan Correctional Center following Jeffrey Epstein's scandal, MDC remains one of the only options for housing federal prisoners in New York. If anything were to happen to Diddy inside those walls, the fallout would be enormous. There have been conflicting reports about whether he remains in solitary or has been moved to a dormitory-style unit with other high-profile inmates, such as former crypto mogul Sam Bankman-Fried. If he has been moved, his level of paranoia will have skyrocketed. Even if he's housed with other inmates requiring protective custody, that doesn't guarantee safety. He could be sharing spaces with up to 18 to 20 other men, some of whom are just as dangerous as the general population inmates. For now, Diddy's legal team is doing everything in their power to get him released on bail, offering a $50 million bond. So far, the judge has refused, meaning he remains stuck in MDC for the foreseeable future. Whether or not he is ultimately convicted, the reality is clear. If he remains behind bars, he will be a man in constant danger. Even if he avoids general population, he will live every day knowing that his wealth makes him a target, and his past makes him a marked man. Only time will tell if he manages to clear his name. If he does, he might reclaim some version of his former life. If not, he will likely spend the rest of his years in a protective custody unit, locked away from the outside world, where the only discussions about freak-offs will come from men who made a lifetime of preying on others.